All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm Bitch 2.
I'm Bitch 1.
And I'm Flint. They let me back. I must have not been that bad. They let me come back. I'm back.
We had to bring Flint back. For those of you who tuned in last week, you recognize him from our discussion in advance of the NFL draft. So now that draft picks have been made for the Cowboys, we had to bring him back so we can talk about what we think about the picks that were made. Before we get into that, though, do we have any shout outs and call outs? I have a couple, but they're like related to other stuff that we're going to be discussing later. So
it's up to you. You want to do it now or later?
So in case that was not a clear indication, we have no show notes.
Clearly.
And unlike the couple of weeks before now, we also have no guests to distract from the fact that we have no show notes. And I don't have any videos or pictures pulled up to further distract you from the fact that I have no show notes. So this is just going to be raw opinions on the air about the NFL draft based on my memory. A couple of tabs pulled up just so I can make sure I don't forget any names. But yeah, you'll get to hear.
We're gonna make it work. It's gonna work.
You're gonna get to hear how we talk about the draft when we're just shooting the shit and chilling, because that's exactly what's happening right now, except it's with mics and cameras.
Go.
Before I get into that, though, speaking of having show notes, I have to give a huge shout out to all the people who did such great draft coverage, especially for the Cowboys, because as y'all see with the number of times that we come on here without show notes, I know it's not our job like it is for some people, but it takes a lot of preparation to be prepared with all the facts and figures and news and notes and information that it takes to properly cover sports, especially when we're dealing with a 24-hour news cycle in sports like we have. And then when it comes to the draft, you're talking about, hundreds of players that most analysts want to be privy on, just to make sure that whatever happens in the draft, whether it's a pick or a trade, somebody moves up, somebody moves down, whatever, they're prepared to talk about it, and the crew on the draft show that's produced by the Dallas Cowboys, phenomenal. And I mean, they were doing 5-hour, 8-hour days, almost no breaks, discussing every pick, not just the Cowboys picks, discussing every pick, giving live narration when they would cut to the war room. Just phenomenal work by that crew. You can see why the Cowboys picked that group of people to cover the draft. And then you've got the content creators who are out here, doing it technically as a hobby, but you can see why they've accrued audiences of thousands of people who tune into them, who watch their tweets, who pay attention to what they say for 3 months. Like Pick Six Sports, they run semi-weekly spaces throughout the entire 3 months leading up to the draft, went live all day, every day of the draft. I mean, and absolutely crushed it. One day I tuned into them live. I think it was the last day on Sunday, and I had the nerve to leave a comment like, "Damn, y'all look exhausted." I was like, "Well, of course they're exhausted." It's like if you've been sitting in front of a computer for 13 hours over the course of 2 days, you'd be exhausted too. So, shout out to y'all. It's not easy work by any means. Anybody can sit back and criticize at any point, but to be that prepared with all that information and to be able to say this was a pick that made sense and this was a pick that didn't, that is hard. But it's something I aspire to do. I've already got my spreadsheet ready for next year. I'm gonna be ready. Well, I'm gonna be more ready than I was this year. So that being said, let's get into the Dallas Cowboys and the picks that they made. So starting off with the first one, I think from the very beginning, people were surprised. Some people. I know there were some people who Mozzie was on their radar.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody really expected him to go first round. So for those tuning in who are not in the loop, and if you're not in the loop at this point, you probably don't even care. But with the 26th pick of the first round of the NFL draft, the Dallas Cowboys selected defensive tackle Mozzie Smith from Michigan. And Flint, you were one of the people who was rooting for Mozzie.
Yes, I was.
How did you feel when he actually went in round one, though?
We were watching, we were watching, we were sitting there watching, and as soon as they said it, I was surprised, but in a good way.
Yeah.
The thing is,
I'll take it. This is exactly what. Okay, all right. I see what you're doing. Okay, I'll take it.
This is the thing. They haven't drafted a defensive tackle in the first round. I want to say since the early 90s. I want to say it's like 91, 92. And I think that's what caught people by surprise because the Cowboys just hadn't drafted an interior defensive tackle that early in the draft. But it's like we talked about at the show last week. And all Cowboy fans know we struggled at times to stop the run, to stop teams from running on us. And one of the best running teams in the league, the Eagles, is in our division.
Right. And so they position themselves to be an even better running team.
Right. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. So I think it was as far as getting a player that can come in and play immediately, I'm not to say that he's going to be a starter. He may not start, but I could see at some point in the year him being a starter. And he is a person that I feel like is going to be around for a while because we've needed a guy like that for a long time. And I was telling, should I say bitch too or Elena?
Whatever, however.
Lethal as pain. That's fine.
Yeah.
But
whatever you call it. I never thought about the fact that he probably calls you Elena at home. That's right. So thinking about somebody actually calling you that regularly.
Baby.
Or baby more than anything. But yeah, I mean, I was telling her that when I listened to on that draft coverage you were just talking about, I listened to them talk to Mozzie, right after the draft. And I just liked his energy. He seems like a very down to earth dude that's just going to come in and work. And he mentioned the word team a lot. I'm here to do my job for the team. And I think that's the thing that, when we get into the draft coverage, we get to talking about, he's this speed, he's this height, or he's what type of guy character-wise is going to fit with your team. Because we all know as people that have played sports, you can be the greatest player ever, but if you're a horrible teammate and you can't play
100%.
with everybody else around you, then it's not going to fit. So I think
he's preaching. Yes.
I think he's a good guy for his talent, and it seems like he's going to be a good character guy too. Yeah. So that's what I really like about Mozzie. And also too, I don't know if y'all seen Micah's reaction to them picking Mozzie.
Oh my God, it's so good.
No more quarterback sneak. So look, we don't want to. It's still gonna be tough to stop it. Knock on wood.
I might have to try to pull that one up.
Yeah. It was good. His reaction was good
because that reaction was epic.
It was good.
He said, "No more quarterback sneaks, AJ." I'm like, wow, bulletin board material already.
Yes.
That's gonna be on replay all through the regular season. You already know. But I'll tell you why I was surprised. So I wasn't surprised because the Cowboys haven't picked a DT in so long. I was surprised because I guess going into it, I thought there were more important needs. Like in my mind, as we've discussed, it's like, I'm like, O-line, like I need this O-line to be stronger. I need more depth. I need to feel more secure. And to be honest, I still don't, but we'll get into that later. But that was the thing that surprised me. I didn't see defensive tackle as a need that was so great that it would warrant a first round pick. Now, after considering it, like taking my fangirl hat off and thinking about the team and not just the protection of Dak Prescott,
which is important.
Well, very important because that was an issue too. Us stopping the run was an issue, but also Dak Prescott having time and enough peace in the pocket to do his job. That was a thing, right? Yes. And also him not being injured has been a thing like for the past couple of seasons, you know? So like there are a lot of reasons to want to see this O-line get stronger. However, if you think about it, if we know that the Philadelphia Eagles are one of our biggest division rivals, and what they're doing is going to strengthen their run game. The answer isn't to try to get a stronger run game. It's to be prepared to stop their run game.
Yeah, got to be able to stop them.
And so I think they definitely did that. And then, also listening to Mozzie talk and listening to him just talk about doing his job. It wasn't about let me come out here and, be a star, which, Micah seems determined. Micah's like, we're going to get each other some sacks. And Mozzie's like, I'm going to be an elite run blocker. And I'm like, there you go.
I want to do my job first.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
100%.
And it's just like, especially if you think about like towards the end of the season, once Hankins got hurt, and just how different our defense looked.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And Hankins is one of those people who it almost seemed like people forgot about him. Like he's not a star,
Until he's
right?
gone.
Right.
Yeah, and he doesn't get talked about a lot, but once he was gone, everybody was like, "Why can't we stop the run? They run all over us." And it's like, y'all realize this dude got hurt? Did y'all miss that?
Right.
Like he was important.
Yeah.
He was really important.
Key player.
And I'm not saying that this dude is going to replace Hankins. What I'm counting on is that the tandem of them will be pretty significant. But I think that just showed what can happen as far as our ability to stop the run when one person goes out. And if you have that one person consistently stopping the run, they're literally in a position to get hurt
Right.
a bit more regularly. I'm looking for the video. I thought Micah would have posted it on his own Twitter, but maybe he didn't. Whose Twitter was it on? I know it was on Bleacher Report.
I think that might have been where I seen it. You bring up a good point about Hankins, though, because that's one thing that I was talking to somebody else about earlier in the week. Hankins is a veteran player that plays the same position. So I think that's another reason that Mozzie is a good fit. That's somebody that he can come in and learn from also, too, because it's good to have experience around you that you can learn from. So I think that is a good thing to have them there together, so he can, as a young guy, he can learn from Hankins also too.
That's and he's admitted that he needs to learn. So it's not like
I'm coming here knowing everything and being the best without even showing that I am the best.
Coming in humble.
I should have just went to my bookmarks first. It's right here.
Nice. Are you gonna pull the other Micah video too?
Huh? Oh, the one about Kent?
Yeah.
I was looking at it. I 100% am.
I was like, I have that one on deck.
Because,
like that one.
No, that one lives rent free in my head. It is in my bookmarks because like I've already used it like 3 times. When people are like, why are we? And I'm like, it's Kent's fault.
Right.
Fault, man.
It's all Kent's fault. And if you don't know what I mean, you'll see what I mean in a second. But I'm gonna share this video of Micah Parsons' reaction to Mozzie being drafted.
The text, man. I told you Dan wouldn't let me down.
The Dallas Cowboys select Mozzie Smith.
Let's go, man. Yo, look at the text, man. I told you Dan wouldn't let me down, man. Dan wouldn't let me down.
Read it. You want me to read it? Michigan DT, you texted him today at 3:27, and he responded, "I'm all about that life." And then you wrote, "Please."
We about that life.
I love it though. I love the energy.
Oh, I accidentally tapped it.
No more QB sneak, AJ.
Wow.
Huge.
Wow.
Huge.
The Dallas Cowboys select.
One more
right.
time. One more time.
Let's go.
Oh, AJ, no more QB.
No more QB sneak. No more.
Sometimes when the players describe texts that they get back from Dan Quinn, it sounds like Dan Quinn has like a modern colloquialism AI chatbot in his phone.
Yes.
Because it's like, while it fits, it's also kind of a weird response to be like, I'm all about that.
I just cannot picture Dan Quinn saying that, like actively saying that.
I can picture him saying it, but it's a phrase that it's like it fits, but it don't.
Right.
Like,
But I think, however he does it, I think that's part of the reason that the players talk about Dan Quinn the way that they do.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's able to connect with the players, and that's not saying that is the only thing that you use to connect with the players, but it seems like they're really they connect with it.
Yeah.
And the defense plays hard. Even if the defense doesn't play well, not saying that the offense don't, but even every game you can count on the defense to come out and compete. Those guys are playing hard. You
can see always Dan Quinn
right.
standing up
yes,
every time the defense is out.
Standing up, hat on backwards.
Yeah. He's on your shit every time.
Very much so.
Well, pulling out my degree knowledge, see, I do get to use my degree. But
Who said I wouldn't?
one of the things that they talk about when it comes to organizational development and getting people kind of like on board on the same mission is the use of certain language.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's preached is just how language can make people feel more comfortable, which I can relate from my time in Mexico when I thought it was great idea to get a hotel by myself, not realizing that like
she's
English
also talking about Mexico City specifically, not just in any time.
Yeah,
any
Mexico
town
City.
In Mexico,
yeah,
Mexico
I wasn't
City.
at like a resort where everybody's like trained to speak English. I was in Mexico City
as a coach,
and I had to do things like order food or like the funniest story. And I hope this isn't TMI, but basically I had to I needed a Diva cup. And I had to order one through Uber Eats, and the driver was trying to call me to he was trying to tell me that they didn't have what I was looking for at the store, and he needed to either get another brand or go to another store, and just like, but he didn't speak English either. But I say that to say, like, when you are in an area where they don't speak your language, you realize how uncomfortable that can be and how helpless you
Lynn knows
feel.
too.
Right,
I know too. Shit.
And so even if it doesn't come natural to him, and even if he does need an AI chatbot, the fact that he at least, attempts to speak their language makes a huge difference, I'm sure.
Makes him a great coach. Like that's a great thing as a coach, like connecting with your players like that. Like just the fact that you're trying to, speak their language in that way just speaks volumes.
Right.
Yeah. Alrighty. Anything else on Mozzie?
Let's go. That's all.
No more QB
That was it.
That's all we got on Mozzie.
That's all I got.
Well, in round 2, the Cowboys have picked 58, and they picked. This was one that I think really had people. They picked Luke. Is it Shoemaker or Schumacher?
I've heard people say Schoonmaker and Schumacher. So I don't know if
I know the beginning is shoe.
Okay.
There's an N. And the last part is Maker, which I've always pronounced maker. So until further notice, he's Shoemaker. To me.
Is it German heritage? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Okay.
That sounds like some German shit though.
Because there was a Formula One driver. I think it was a Formula One driver, and it was Schumacher. As far as I know. But I don't know if he has a C on it or not.
No.
The Formula One driver.
Schoonmaker doesn't have a C. It's just
not at the end. It's SCHOONMAKER. So it's like the word school with an N instead of L, and then maker.
Schoonmaker.
So I don't blame anybody who looks at this and says Schoonmaker.
Yeah, that's how I would read it.
But I remember on most broadcasts they were saying Shoemaker or Schumacher.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, so I'm pretty sure the beginning is shoe.
We'll talk about the rest another time.
Yeah, we'll figure out the rest of it
now. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
He's on the team for now.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So yeah, he's a tight end from Michigan. And as far as tight ends, he wasn't one of the people that I was specifically interested in. What about y'all?
I from the way I remember the draft played out, there may have been another guy. There may have been one or two guys left that I would have liked, but I'm not I think he can come and I think he's a good fit. And I think from what I've seen, from what I watched on tape, I think he's a guy that his athleticism, the way they used him in college didn't really put his athleticism on display. I think he can be a better pass catcher. But the thing about him, and I think one of the main reasons that they got him, is he is a proven blocker. If you just go and look at his tape, and not just a highlight tape, like if you just go and pick random tape of him and look at it, I think, and for whatever that counts for, I think he's a better blocker than the two tight ends we have now. I do. I think
a lot of people are saying that that's the reason why he was selected. And he wasn't one of the people that I'd really looked into before the draft. Yeah. Like I said, I didn't do nearly as much studying as most people before the draft. So it's like I kind of picked my faves and then I dug deep into those people. Yeah. He was one of the people who, after we picked them, I had to kind of go back and look and see what I thought. And I think one of the reasons he is such a good blocker is he looks to me like somebody who at some point somebody was like, hey, a good tight end is a quarterback's best friend. because not only is he a good blocker, but he also has this tendency to come back to the ball whenever, it comes to catching passes. Like, he seems to be very quarterback friendly and always looking for where do I need to be based on what my quarterback said he's trying to do. And even though it's not that direct role of like protecting that, like, I'm just like, okay, if it's gonna help him do his job, cool.
It's all about can't.
So we'll see. I'm not gonna act like I watched hours of footage of him since the draft. I've watched a little bit, and I've listened to a lot of what other people had to say about him, and based on that, I can see why they picked him. Even though he wasn't on my radar, he apparently wasn't on a lot of people's radars, and even though it was only round 2. I think this was the pick that kind of made me step back and be like, you know what? I'm not about to let myself get worked up and emotional over these picks. I'm just like, every single year, even though I've only been following the Cowboys for a couple of seasons, I've been following the Saints for a long time. I've been following football in general for a long time. And every single year, there are picks that people expect to be stars and they turn out to be busts, and picks that people are like, what were you thinking? And they turn out to be great. I mean, even last year, there were a lot of Cowboys fans who didn't even like Micah Parsons as a pick. They were like, why did you pick a linebacker with that pick? What were you thinking? We needed this. We needed that. And look at what is this? This is crazy. You know, and only 2 seasons later, you redraft. The people who do redrafts, a lot of people have him as like the 3rd to 5th pick in the draft now, even though that was crazy a couple years ago, So I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna trust the people who get paid to do this. And I even tweeted, I was just like, because at first I had a little fun with it. I was like, did the Cowboys forget what round we're in? Because I think in like one mock draft I remembered the name, in like one mock draft I had him in like the 4th round or something. But outside of that, like, I wasn't checking for him at all. And so like I tweeted that to have a little fun with it, but then later on I was just like, you know what, there's a reason why they do interviews at the combine and they do these 30 visits. Like, I want to say, I don't know if all our draft picks did a 30 visit, but like, if it wasn't all, it was definitely most.
There's definitely some that were 30 picks. I don't know if all of them were, but even when you look at the undrafted guys, I think some of those guys may have been being 30 picks. So, and the Cowboys have a history of doing that. They like to take guys that they've been able to get into the building and have a conversation with, get their own measurements, sit down and have a conversation with them. And also what they do a lot of times in the 30 visits too, is they get an opportunity to talk a little bit of strategy with them too. So they'll get them in there, they'll pull something up on the board, like, what would you do here? What's your responsibility here? Or they'll even pull up their tape and be like, all right, what were you thinking here? So it's kind of a chance to pick their brain. And that's the thing. It's like you say, like, they have a plan, you kind of got to trust their plan. They get paid to do it, so.
Right. I was like, clearly through all of that, they've picked up some information that I don't have.
Right.
I would hope so. Otherwise, why the fuck are they doing all that? Right. So that was the point at which I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna just let the picks be what they are. And then I'm gonna get to my critiques when it comes to making the particular rosters. So I was just like, all right, he's not a bad pick. So I was just like, we'll see.
I think he has the potential to be a better Schultz. That's what I think he has the potential to be. I see the same type of build. I see he's a little bit more athletic, and I think it could be something like that. But this is the thing too to remember at the tight end position. Last year we got 2 good tight ends. Last year we got Ferguson, he played well, and we got the other guy Hendershot. So it's not like he has to come in and it's not like he has to come in and save the world. Come in, learn from those guys. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ferguson is the starter at the beginning of next year. I'm not 100% sure that this guy is going to come in and be the starter, but that doesn't mean, I don't think that means that he's a bust neither. I think the 3 of them can be a good tight end group together. I think maybe that's what they're looking at. Man, I don't know, but I think maybe that's what they're looking at. Hopefully, like you said, we got to trust. We got to trust the process. But I think maybe they're looking at the collective of them being good, and we'll see. We will definitely find out.
All right, I'm going to run through these next few just to make sure that we have time to talk about the NBA and whatnot before we get out of here. So with the 3rd round pick, number 90, the Cowboys chose Demarion Overshawn. Is it DeMarvion?
I know that was a tough one for me too.
I'm
I
about
was
to learn
reading.
these names. Oh my God.
Forgive us.
I'm
We'll
like,
get it. We'll get it right.
I'm like, rookie camp start in a couple weeks. I need to be able to pronounce this stuff. Okay, so DeMarvion Overshone, linebacker from Texas. And then in the 4th round, it also doesn't help this like mic stands like in the way of my in the 4th round with pick 129, we chose Viliami. I think that's how you say it. Viliami Fehoko Jr. He goes by Junior, a defensive end from San Jose State. And then in the 5th round with pick 169, we got Asim Richards, an offensive tackle from North Carolina. Anything significant about those?
I think that I think with Asim Richards, I think that's telling because I think that means that they're gonna play Tyler Smith at left guard and they're gonna play Tyron Smith at left tackle and still will be the starter. I don't think that Asim is gonna come in and start. Not to say that he can't earn that spot or maybe they decide to go elsewhere, but I think if they would have picked somebody earlier, we would have been expecting them to come in and start. I think we're kind of see where Richards is at. And he played tackle in college, but I think they're going to move him to guard with the Cowboys. With the guy Fehoko, I like Fehoko. When I looked at, I think that there's a chance that they could be looking at him to be Lawrence's replacement whenever Lawrence decides to step away, because I see some similar traits. Fajoko's athletic. He's a strong player. He plays the same position, and he can be stout against the run and the pass. And we'll see what goes on because they got Sam Williams last year, so I think Sam Williams could be in that conversation too. But I really like Fehoko. And then there's one other. Who was the 3rd round pick? The 3rd was
3rd round.
Oh, Overshone. Overshone is interesting because when you were following the draft, when we were looking at the draft going into it, you're looking at the coverage. A lot of his linebacker grades weren't that great, but as you started to dig into the pick, you started to see that there started to be chatter that maybe the Cowboys are going to use him at end. When he went into college, he was a safety going into college, and they moved him to linebacker. But it seems like, and this is what I was telling you before, it seems like what they want to do is they want to give Dan Quinn guys that fit into his style and his scheme. And Overshone is that type of guy. Yeah. He's kind of like he's a little bit heavier than Curse, but he's kind of like that. He can cover, he's fast, he's big, he can tackle, he can do a lot of things for you. And I think that's what they're kind of looking at Overshone. So, I mean, I like those picks because I see the direction with what they're doing with those picks. Yeah. I see the direction. I see the plan, and a big thing with the Cowboys is they like to get really athletic guys on defense. And that's what they did with Fehoko and also Overshone. Those are guys that tested really well, that when you watch them play, you're like, this guy is an athlete. He's not just a big, bulky power guy, or he's not just a really lean, fast guy. Like, this guy's got a good body and he's athletic. He can give you a little bit of both speed and power, at their position. So
yeah, Fehoko is one of the guys that I'm rooting for. As far as like, these are the people who I hope like make it and end up on the roster. And I was looking for a particular video before we get into the next pick that I was going to mention, and I can't find the actual video. So I think I'm going to have to show y'all the clip from Hanging with the Boys when they showed the video, because that's the only place I could actually find it. I thought it would be like on the Cowboys YouTube because it was a really significant moment in the draft. I think it's going to be one of those top NFL draft moments that finally gets people to stop talking about CeeDee Lamb and what Ryan Clark called the left hand of God. Jesus. So I'm sure CeeDee Lamb is really appreciative, because if I were him, I would be like, would you all just chill? But yeah, the selection of Deuce Vaughn, running back from Kansas State. And so on paper, just not thinking about his connection to the Cowboys, but on paper, he's one of those players that I can see why he went so late in the draft. Because although he's dynamic and his stats are phenomenal, his stats as far as like on-field production, they are actually phenomenal. He is 5'5", 176 pounds. Now, if you go on Google, it says 5'6", but I've been hearing 5'5" all weekend. So I'm going with 5'5".
I know what it is.
Right. So
To be like 5'5".
He's gonna be one of those players that every year Google like
Yeah.
bumps it up.
He's gonna be 5'8" by the time.
It's 5'8" on Tinder, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
But I've been hearing 5'5" all weekend, and so naturally, that's one of those players that, you know, kind of like what happened with Kevontae Turpin. You see him on the field, you see his production, you see how dynamic he is, but then you kind of look at his stature, and you're just kind of like,
Makes you
but
question.
can he hang? But he happens to be the son of a scout. And this particular Dallas Cowboys scout, apparently when it came time to make a pick for this round, he left the room because his son was towards the top of the board, and he didn't want to be part of the discussion about whether or not to take his son or somebody else. So I'm trying to find this particular. Yeah.
It's a really cool video.
It is. It's really sweet.
So I'm gonna share the video of this moment because it was a touching moment. I'm not one of those people normally to be like, oh, but this was a pretty cool moment.
Draft. Hey, buddy. How's it going? Hey, it's going good. This is Dad. My phone wasn't working. Look here, man. You want to come to work with me next week? I wouldn't mind that at all. I got somebody want to speak to you.
I don't know when I've been speaking for everybody that's really in the heart of the Dallas Cowboys is standing here with a tear in our eye. We're so happy to have you on the Dallas Cowboys.
I can't thank you enough.
Well, what I really want to say, you earned every ounce of me being able to make this call. I'm so excited. There's just something magical about this moment that may be bigger than we even realize here talking to you on the phone. But you is now a Dallas Cowboy. Your daddy just handed the card in. Right here.
Yes.
It's got him on.
Congratulations. What's up, Coach? I appreciate it. I'll tell you what, I've been doing this a long time. This is so special for you and your father and your family. If you can,
So I'm gonna stop it there. So apparently, what happened was, his name is Chris. They call him Deuce because he's a junior. His dad's name is also Chris. But Deuce was starting to think that he might not get picked up because of his height. Legitimate concern.
Yes.
And his dad was trying to be encouraging, and Jerry, being Jerry, kind of went up there and made it sound like they were gonna pick somebody else, and started talking about other players who were at the top. And then he was like, "Oh, well, let's just put Deuce's name on the card." Just kind of surprise his dad, and his dad got the opportunity to make the call, let his son know that he had been picked. So it was a really sweet moment, but just let it be known, like, this guy definitely earned his spot on the team at this point. We're not talking about somebody who's like, this isn't nepotism, right?
No. You wouldn't be in the draft if you're not.
The only sense that I could see it being nepotism is that, because his dad is a scout and knows him intimately, he might have a better idea of what he brings in terms of his heart and his character.
Right.
But he's putting up numbers, like, not only on the ground but in the air as well. So this is one of those picks that I'm happy with. It is one of those ones that kind of makes me wonder what exactly is the future of Kevontae Turpin, because some people are kind of like, well, no, Kevontae Turpin is fine. Like, he had a long season last year playing with the USFL and then going to the NFL. But then some people are like, nah, sometimes his vision just wasn't there and his decision-making was not on point. And we might need somebody who has just a little bit more of that NFL quality that we're looking for. And they seem to think this person is Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody that's 5'8", anybody under 6 foot, I'm rooting for you. You got to vote in me.
What do you call him?
Say it. Can I say it? I don't know if I can say that on here. Can I say it?
You can say whatever you want on here.
Team short nigga.
You might be the first person to use that word on this show, actually.
But real talk though.
Can I say
you
here?
hit the nail right on the head. The bottom line is Deuce Vaughn is a player. Like he's a player. The
Yes.
dude can play. Like don't anybody that before you judge him, anybody that's not familiar with him, go to YouTube. Go to YouTube and look at his tape. The dude is a player, So the thing is, I just hope that they do have a plan with him because this is a thing now. I don't want to sound negative, but I don't see a world where if Tony Pollard isn't playing, Deuce Vaughn can come in and give us 20, 25 carries in a game or 15, 20 carries in a game. In that way, I think I think there's a particular way that you got to use him, which, like you say, makes you wonder about the future. Now, if I just really hope that they have a plan for how they want to use Deuce.
They did say they have a plan for him.
And that's the thing. I just hope that because and that's what that's what I was telling you. Like if you don't have a plan and you just try to use them, it took us 3 years to figure out how to use Pollard. I was
just gonna say that.
It took us 3 years to figure out how to use Pollard. So
I feel like we knew how to use Pollard. They just weren't doing it for some reason.
Yeah.
Because it's like what we saw from Pollard in 2022. We saw from him before. It's just almost like they just let him do it more.
Right.
And then there were those rumors that, people in the camp were like, oh, well, he's only good for this many carries.
Right.
And I don't know where they got that number from.
Right.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, they thought it was necessary to limit him, you know? So, and I mean, if we're being honest, we can see in a lot of the ways that they use Zeke, they definitely wanted to make sure Zeke hit certain numbers.
Right.
So even that could have been part of it.
Could have been in the way. Could have been in the way.
But I'm excited about what we're going to see from this guy.
Yeah.
I hope he earns a 22. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
For our listeners who aren't familiar with the history of the number 22 with the Dallas Cowboys, but there have been several running backs who have worn the number 22. It wasn't just Bob Hayes and Emmitt Smith, but those two players in particular were such legendary players, especially after Emmitt Smith,
right?
That now it's like, even though the Cowboys don't retire numbers, 22 is one of those numbers that not just anybody can come in and put on.
Yeah.
Right.
He's probably going to it's not even one of those things that I think you can earn in the preseason. He's going to have to put in a couple of seasons of phenomenal work before anybody's going to be comfortable with him even
wearing
talking
22,
about 22.
Yeah.
But that would be great to see. And I think it would be great for just all the people, I'm always rooting for people who don't fit the status quo.
There we
yeah,
go.
for sure.
There we
The sports
go.
world is really just catching up to the fact that 33 is not old.
Right.
And it would also be awesome if they could catch up to the fact that being under 5'10" doesn't make you a bad athlete.
Right.
Regardless of the sport that you play.
Right.
Yes. Agreed.
Right.
So I'm here for it.
Right.
And then
Room for you, Deuce.
rooting for Deuce 100%. And then in the 7th round, we had Jalen Brooks, wide receiver out of South Carolina. So as for me out of this group, and you can speak on Jalen Brooks whenever you have your turn. I don't have nothing to say about him. But as for me out of this group, the people I'm really rooting for are definitely Mozzie Smith, the refrigerator running down the hill.
Yeah.
Deuce Vaughn.
Yes.
And for the sake of the tight end group being whole, I'd like to see Shoemaker work out. And then I'm just really curious about Junior Fehoko.
Yeah.
He had an interesting interview. And then just the fact that Dan Quinn seems to have a plan for everybody coming in on the defensive side.
Right.
So I know there's 4 people out of this draft class that I'm expecting big things from, which some people might consider a lot. But as far as just going into the rookie camp, OTAs, training camp, those are the people I'm rooting for. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
What about y'all?
I'm with you. I want to see Mozzie. I want to see Deuce. I am also interested in Fehoko. The last guy, is it Brooks? Jalen Brooks?
Yes.
The interesting thing about Brooks is that he's a wide receiver with size, because some of our wide receivers are smaller, and he's not smaller, but we don't have a bigger wide receiver.
How big is he?
But I want to say Brooks is as 6'1", 6'2", and he's right around 200 pounds.
I think Simi Fehoko is bigger than him.
Google
says Jalen Brooks is 5'10", 229 pounds.
Okay.
And Simi, I know, is 6'3".
Yeah, because you're in love with him, so yeah. Has to be at least 6. At least
I'm a
6.
fan.
Okay. Well then,
Simi Fehoko is listed as 6'4", 220
Whoa.
pounds.
Whoa.
well, that's the thing.
So
Okay, Google.
I thought Brooks was taller. If Brooks isn't taller, then we'll just have to see. Because I thought he was around 6 foot. If he's not around 6 foot, then we'll just have to see what Brooks.
oh wait,
can
no, I
bring.
think this is the wrong person. Hold on,
Yeah.
because I just looked at it. It says linebacker, and I'm like, wait, we're not looking for a linebacker.
Because I thought he was around 6, but
let me put in Jalen Brooks wide receiver.
You bring up a good point about Simi though, because I do want to see Simi.
Okay, Jalen Brooks, the wide receiver, is 6'2", 205 pounds.
Yeah,
Simi's still bigger.
Yeah. No, oh no, for sure. But I'm just saying compared to Gallup and Lamb and Cooks,
Yeah,
you know, we don't, you know, and I feel like CD is right around 6'2" also. I could be wrong on that.
yeah, because I remember.
I feel
Well,
like
their
CD's right
receipts,
around-
damn it.
I know him and John are on the same height, so he's like 6'1", 6'2". Leave me alone. 6'2", 201 pounds.
Right.
Is CD
Dear
Lamb.
CD.
Right.
How tall are you?
I'm just curious to see also if they're really gonna try to put Jalen Brooks into the fold, because I do expect Gallup to be better. I do expect Cooks to be a factor. Lamb did what Lamb does last year. You look, ain't nobody talking about his Lamb a number 1 now. Like everybody,
or 88 club or no
everybody quiet on that
bullshit.
now. So
No questions about the 88 club.
again, what it goes back to is what exactly is the plan gonna be? Is the plan gonna be with
I'm hoping his purpose is to light a fire under Simi Fehoko so that Simi shows
works
up.
out.
Not only because like he's bigger in size and I feel like he's good at what he does. It's just like if you pay attention to like I don't know if Simi has actually done a complete interview about his story. I want to interview him so bad. But every now and then he'll post pieces of his story on TikTok, right? And he comes off to me honestly as somebody who didn't expect to be where he is. And so there's something about that with a player, with an athlete, like those people who
level.
expect to be great. It's like they put in a different kind of work when they're just like, I'm trying to fulfill my destiny. I'm trying to reach my potential. But when you listen to him talk about his path to even getting D1 offers, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna pull up that video because he recently did a video on TikTok about his first D1 offer. And honestly, to me, it shed a lot of light on why he might come off the way he does to some people. Because I've had some people ask, does Simi Fehoko actually love football? And I think there's so much of his talent that comes naturally. He hasn't really figured out what that means.
Yeah.
So like when I see him in the backyard, or I actually saw one caption that calls it the Fortress, like the number Fortress, which I like that name a lot better than the backyard.
Okay.
So when I see him at the Fortress putting in work, I believe that he's trying, but it's just like anybody who's been an athlete, and I know you know, because especially in Derby, we don't get paid to do what we do. So if we want to be great, we have to just find some time in there that we can sacrifice and just put in that work to do it in addition to living our regular life. So it's like you got to really want it. But one thing that you realize on that path to trying to be a great athlete and being a great contributor to your team is that you might start off and you're like, I'm working harder than I've ever worked in my life. And then you realize that's not hard enough. And then you got to put in even more work. And you're like, dang, I'm working harder than I ever worked in my life. And then you're like, okay, I need to do even more. And you have to keep leveling up, because everything that you think is the level to get where you need to go is not until you get to that level that you realize, dang, this ain't even it. And you start to realize why people like Kobe were getting up at 4 a.m. to do workouts, because that's what it takes to be the best. And I think for Simi, he's just never been that person. He's never been relied on that level to where he had to put in that work. And I think he's still trying to figure out, not to mention the fact that he's got a baby on the way in the midst of all this, right? And I think he's still trying to figure out, like, okay, what does this feel like? How do I adjust my lifestyle to being this person that I need to be in order to be considered a staple in the wide receiver room of the Dallas Cowboys? I don't think he doesn't love it. I don't think he doesn't want it. I think he's still adjusting to it. And I think that takes longer than a lot of people expect. So
100%.
I'm gonna pull up this video just so you can kind of hear this story.
Even if you're a natural athlete, you still have to put in a lot of work to play at that level. Whatever sport you play, to play at that level, you have to put in insanely amount of work. Regardless if you're like, naturally
How do you-
athletic and
There we go.
a freak of nature. But
All right, so I'm gonna share this video real quick. I wasn't even planning on doing this, but since we're talking about Simi, we're gonna talk about Simi. I'll never turn down an opportunity to talk about Simi.
I've been waiting for this. Been waiting for this.
All right, bro. Let me just tell you how I got my first D1 college offer. I don't think people realize, bro, I was a smooth $175, and I could not get over 175. Like, that was my peak. That was it. That was as big as I was gonna get. Side note, I really thought I was drippy, bro. Like, drip or drown type thing. Like, I even did my face. Anyway, I was a certified lover boy too. Like, check out this is my wife right now. She high school sweetheart. You know how we do it. But I was not on varsity my freshman year. I didn't make varsity. I wasn't good enough. There was a bunch of dudes in front of me, right? But I was good enough going into my sophomore year to get invited to go to a 7-on-7 pylons in Vegas, right? For Team Utah. But I wasn't even on Team 1. There was Team 2. It was just for scrubs, right? My girl had been with me for ever. So we show up to 7-on-7, right? I'm just a skinny little dude. I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm okay, let me just play some football, bro. It's basketball season, but screw it. I'm going to just play some football. I show up. I start going stupid, head topping, and I got my feet down. Touchdown. Anyways, we end up going and winning a whole bunch of games, all that stuff, man. But it just so happens that a recruiter was there. Guess what college? These dudes right here, bro. Clemson was my first offer. I was a sophomore. And that's because I was just hooping at this 7-on-7, right? And I wasn't even on the best team. I never played receiver. I was really garbage, bro. My sophomore year, I didn't even play receiver either. I just played free safety, but I was getting picks back there. I was cat. After they offered, man, it started like a trend. And then the in-state schools like Utah, BYU, they started offering. And then I started going to camps and invited to camps, and I started getting more offers. Ended up with Stanford, dream school. You know why I had to do it. Come on, man. All right, bro. Let me just tell you how I got my first D1.
He's such a raw, humble dude. Such a down to earth, regular dude. I don't know. He's just so cool.
I love it. But when he told that story, it revealed two things to me. One, he didn't expect to be most people who start off not even expecting to get D1 offers definitely don't expect to become a Dallas Cowboy. Definitely don't expect to be one of the main receivers for the Dallas Cowboys, because it's when it comes to the Cowboys, historically, the star position, of course, has always been the quarterback, right? But right behind that, the most well-known players often are the receivers, and every now and then you get a phenomenal running back like Emmitt Smith or Ezekiel Elliott. But it's the Cowboys and the receivers, they end up being the faces of the organization.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of a big deal athletically. So for one thing, it told me that he's probably just now getting to the point where it's just oh crap, I
gotta do it.
I'm here, Secondly, the question of does he love football? Clearly he does, because the whole reason he was in that position at that event where the recruiter was because it was an opportunity to play football. It was a 7-on-7. Yeah. He didn't really see the significance of it at the time, but he went because it was something that he wanted to do. And let me tell you, if you've never been an athlete, if you think you are garbage, but decide to voluntarily play for fun anyway, you love that sport.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So anybody who's questioning what that means, the fact that he was I was really garbage and I didn't play receiver, but then he goes out to this game that doesn't count for anything and plays receiver. Yes, he loves football. He loved it then and probably still loves it now. Because
you don't just travel so far to
any
just play ball.
Skaters who have ever been to RollerCon and somebody been we need a jammer, and you're just all right, I'm gonna do it. You know what I'm saying right now.
Give me that star. That's gonna be you. Give me that star. You're gonna bitch all the way about it, but you can do it.
You know what I'm saying right now. So yeah, I feel like he answered that. It might not be the answer that some people wanted. And I think it might be a little while before we see the answer that a lot of people want to see, which is going to be a lot like CeeDee Lamb. Not saying that Simi is going to be the number one wide receiver, but in the sense that CeeDee Lamb, the work that he put in wasn't enough. He had to actually show the performance to prove to people that he was who he claimed to be. And I think it's going to be the same thing with Simi, where it's there are going to be some people who see it now, and there are going to be some people who are going to be you have to show and prove. You have to show and prove.
Yeah.
But he's been on this team. He's contributed a lot on special teams. And I really think that if it hadn't been for his injury, he would have gotten more opportunities because he didn't put up a lot of yards or make a lot of catches, but he also wasn't getting a lot of targets.
Yes.
Right. And so I just feel like had he had a full season, he would have gotten more targets and had opportunities. He wasn't out here lining up off sides like somebody.
Yeah.
So when people try to make that comparison between him and Tolbert, I'm like, I get Tolbert was drafted higher and had higher expectations, but I'm just like, we haven't seen Tolbert contribute even on special teams.
Right.
We've seen him make a lot of what some people call dumb mistakes. And I have to give Simi the edge. And so I really expect Simi to show up. And I mean, have you seen some of these pictures from what he's doing at the Fortress? It's like, this man can fly, yo. Like, he still had top and dues. Like, that wasn't just
he's a talented player.
Like, yes, he's got skills. He just needs to build that familiarity. And anyway, this is not enough.
Dear Simi, are you gonna start writing letters to Simi too?
I might have to because I've been trying so hard to get him on the show. I want to talk to him about his story.
We need to go with like some music from behind, like dear whoever.
Yeah, and I would also like him to sing on the show. Like, he hasn't made a video.
Listen, Simi, just come over whenever you're ready. We'll be ready.
I'll give you
let
the
us
gas
know
money
when.
to drive to Austin. I'll meet you in. I think he lives near Frisco. I say that because I stopped by one of the spots he mentioned in one of his TikTok videos, and that place wasn't in Frisco. Anyway, or wasn't in Plano. I don't know, somewhere up north. Anyway, moving on.
DFW.
Moving on. So now that the draft is over, what we're gonna see now is where the Cowboys really shine, which is when it comes to these undrafted free agents. They have a knack for picking up people who weren't drafted. Hendershot was an undrafted free agent, for example. And so I'll be honest, I haven't had a ton of time to look into who we've picked up so far. We have picked up a few people. Jerry Jones said after, I forget which day it was, but in one of the post draft day interviews he said they expected to end up with 30 new players between the rookies they drafted and the people they picked up from the undrafted free agents. So I don't think they're quite at 30 total yet. I think they have a few more to go. But one I will comment on, I'm gonna tell y'all this story. So I write for Inside the Star, as I've mentioned a few times. And so Sunday morning rolled around and I needed one more article to reach my quota and start. The article I did on Mozzie did not do well. I think it's because there was so much information about Mozzie.
Right.
So I was just like, what's something nobody's talking about? And I was like, there was only one HBCU player drafted. That's so weird. It's like a lot of people expected that number to increase. That actually went down. Last year, there were 4 HBCU players drafted, none in the first 3 rounds.
Damn.
And there were several HBCU players people expected to be drafted. Only one was by the Patriots of all people. I shouldn't say it like that. I shouldn't say it like that. But it's not one of the teams when you hear that only one HBCU player was drafted.
You would never guess your first thought would never be the Patriots.
Do with that information what you will. But so I was just like, well, the Inside the Star ain't really about political stances and opinions, but I did notice the Cowboys had signed one of the top HBCU draft picks, which was Isaiah Land. And on some lists, he was the number 1 draft pick from HBCUs, a cornerback out of FAMU. He's a cornerback, right? Yeah.
I think he might.
Was it a linebacker?
Let me
I don't remember.
Because I don't. Let me look and see. He might have been an end or a linebacker. I got it in here somewhere.
But
it says defensive end, Isaiah Land. Defensive end.
Yeah, okay. And sorry that I can't remember that. Like, he's another one of those players who I saw his name, but I wasn't really. So I was just like,
not on your radar.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna talk about this guy, and I'm gonna be honest. I watched his film, and I wasn't impressed. He looks like, and so I texted somebody about him, and this is what I almost said in the text. He looks like if you told somebody they had to play a position, but you didn't tell them how to play it. You just told them what not to do. And through deductive reasoning, they've kind of figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
that's kind of what he looks like. Just his mechanics, I was like, okay, he's clearly strong. He's clearly athletic. He's clearly got some speed to him, but just very unpolished. Don't really have that technique you expect to see from a pro, But as part of FAMU's defense, did well in their conference. Like he won the Bucky Buchanan Award.
Nice.
He was voted first team AP FCS. What is they call it?
It might be the FCS
All-American. Yeah, first team All-Pro, FCS All-American. I'm like, there's a lot of letters and words. First team FCS All-Pro, All-American. So he's got some accolades behind his name. So clearly he's been noticed, right? But I was just like, he needs a little something, So I texted this person who follows the draft very closely, and I was just like, yo, I watched some video of this guy. I'm not a fan of his mechanics. What you think? And she was like, look, he's raw, but he's good. He's got heart, and he's managed to make it work. So I'm just like, if we going, give a chance to these people who are shorter than we expect and all this other stuff, I'm just like, all right, we'll see what can happen over the course of the next few months and what he can do. But when I tell you, I wrote an article about this man and it did numbers that literally no article, not only that I've written, but in the entire publication has done since I've been there.
Dang.
When I was writing about the Michael Irvin scandal, as nosy as people were and what they wanted to know about that, that was the highest, that was the benchmark up until now. And he's done tens of thousands above that article. So I'm just like, I don't know what he's going to do on the field, but clearly this man has some fans. There are people who want to see him and hear about him and follow him. He's a star in the making. Now, he's not one of my faves. He
might become one. We don't know.
And I'm not even saying that just because of his mechanics. There are certain things I like about players, and I don't want to say something and accidentally insult him. He's not the type to become. He ain't gonna be getting no letters on this show, right?
let's put it a different way. He's not Lido's type,
right? And it's not even like a physical attractiveness thing, because like he's got a nice body, he's got the hair, like he's a cutie, right? But he's somebody that I'm following just because I'm curious about his journey and about his story. Like, I want to know what it is about this guy, because like I said, I wasn't really checking for him till Sunday. So I watched a little bit and I read a little bit, but I want to know what it is about this guy that's got people all over this country so interested that they are doing record numbers on shit I write. Like, that to me was like, okay, I know a little bit, obviously, because I wrote 800 words on this man, but clearly there's more to it. So I'm gonna be watching him.
Look, you said it. The dude is an athlete, and he is very raw. He's very raw. But when I looked at their undrafted free agents, I think he's got a chance to make the team. And this is the thing. Everybody's not going to be, like you said, everybody's not going to be the star wide receiver or the quarterback or the people who's on the front page of the newspaper. But this guy is an athlete, and I think he's got a chance to play in the NFL for a long time on special teams, because he's fast, he can chase, and he can tackle. And I think he's got a good shot. And I want to say that there's a guy from Florida A&M last year,
Marquise Bell,
that they took as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, so they'll be reunited now,
right? Yeah, exactly. So when I looked at their undrafted free agents, that was a guy that I checked because he is a great athlete. Now, is he going to come in and be a superstar? Maybe not, but I could see him being in the league for a long time.
Maybe not, because we have seen players come in and be terrible, like Terrence Steele,
right,
and then they put in the work and they figure out what to change, what to do better, what to do different, who to work with, what they need to fix, and they become great. Terrence Steele. So it's not impossible.
Oh no,
it's not impossible. We've seen people who were picked low, Dak Prescott, and once you give them a chance, despite what people may want to say about the qualities that you supposedly don't have, they light it up.
There you go.
There you
go.
So it'll be interesting to see what he does. I think he is a person who's more on the Terrence Steele path. Like, I won't be surprised if he doesn't do well his first season. And I hope he gets a chance to prove himself, not only for himself, but, some of the things that he did say in a couple of his interviews suggest that he realizes the significance of helping other people from HBCUs find a path into the NFL. Because as much as that's been talked about and highlighted, and there has been some work done in order to kind of improve the disparity between Power 5 schools and HBCUs, as we can see from this draft, because I mean, let's be real. As raw as Isaiah Land is, there are a few people from the 6th and 7th round who I'm just like, from what I saw, I feel like somebody could have made a different decision there.
Yes. I agree.
I
agree.
But, one thing that we know about the NFL, and we've talked about it in various situations, is that familiarity and these relationships play a big role in these decisions that are made sometimes.
There we go.
And that's just the reality of the situation right now. So I think the more that we can just highlight people who are, especially schools like FAMU, where they've had several undrafted free agents come into the NFL and make a splash. It's like, how many is it going to take before y'all start looking at FAMU as a school that you need to just be drafting from?
Right.
And I think what it's probably going to take is going to be that one season where they have a bunch of players who light it up, and all these teams are like, okay, we'll get them UDFA, whatever, we'll get them, and then they start getting drafted, and all these teams are like, fuck.
That's exactly it.
I thought I had time.
There's pro players at HBCUs, no doubt. There's professional players playing at HBCUs. That's not a debate.
Yeah. And
Jerry Rice went to HBCU, and he's one of the greatest receivers of all time.
100%.
There's players at HBCUs. It's just the fight of, like you say, maybe the narrative of it a little bit,
I think it's the narrative. So in one of his interviews, Isaiah Land talked about the fact that his school didn't have a lot of the amenities of Power 5 schools, and he still had to kind of make things work. Deion Sanders, head coach at Jackson State last year, who moved to University of Colorado, was talking about the lack of resources that his coaches got. Like he was saying how, he was fine financially, obviously, but he wanted to move to a bigger school because the people who worked with him deserved a better salary and better compensation and better conditions for the work that they're doing.
Right.
So what that tells me is that at a lot of the HBCUs, you're not going to get the best coaches, which might be why Isaiah Land looks as raw as he does, because he's got the work ethic. You can tell if he was given the right instructions, he'd follow them. But he maybe hasn't been around the best coaches, because the best coaches are going to go where they can be compensated.
There you go.
And the best athletes are also going to go where they have the best amenities and the best facilities, so on and so forth.
The best chance to get drafted too.
There you go.
Exactly. The best chance to get drafted, right? And so when you see a person, at an HBCU, you already kind of know they're not getting the best coaching. They're not facing the best competition. They don't have the best resources. They don't have the best equipment. And so I think automatically in people's minds, that means they're not going to be the best athletes.
Right.
And a lot of teams, they don't want to take on a project. There's so many ready-made players out there that they'd rather, take somebody who they feel is already ready. And they don't see that in HBCUs. And so I do appreciate Deion Sanders saying what he said. He expressed disappointment in the teams that didn't draft HBCU players. But at the same time, Deion, is kind of like, you put a spotlight on the fact that HBCUs ain't really got it,
Yeah.
So it's like, while I respect you following your mission to another location, I think when it comes to speaking out on behalf of HBCUs, you might want to solicit some help in the future.
Yeah,
if that's a mission you still intend on pursuing.
Yeah.
So
get more donations, better infrastructure.
It's like, Deion, you're not gonna be able to do this one by yourself, because now everybody gonna be like, well, you left HBCU, so why? Should we be disappointed in you? And for the record, I don't think we should be. I'm all about Deion Sanders doing what he needed to do. However, optics, right?
Of course.
If you're still trying to, because he talked about these 3 players from Jackson State, and so it's just like, naturally when you bring that up, people are gonna be like, well, why'd you leave them? So just advice. Yeah, me giving advice to Deion Sanders, but just a thought. I'll put it that way. Just a thought. Maybe get a crew of people together to advocate on behalf of HBCUs, just so there's some credibility to that. All right. Anything else about the Cowboys? I'm gonna say this. All right, just to wrap it up, okay? A lot of people were really disappointed in the draft, but it's like I said at the beginning, fans are wrong so much of the time. Like,
Oh,
even
yeah.
if you
There we
look at,
go.
like, today
There
was
we
the
go.
deadline to pick up fifth-year options, and I think about a third of fifth-year options were picked up from what they said.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? 2/3 of the people who were picked up in the first round of the draft several years ago, those teams have already decided, you know what? We're good, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just never know.
You don't.
And I just, Mike McCarthy made a comment. I don't remember the exact words, but in so many words, he was just like, we're not worried about what the Eagles do, because people were like, well, the Eagles won the draft. What the fuck does that even? Who won the draft last year? Does anybody remember?
No.
I don't remember. I know who won the Super Bowl.
There
I
you
know
go.
who played against them in the Super
There you
Bowl.
go.
I know what happened to the Cowboys throughout the season.
There you
One thing
go.
I do remember about this time last year is the fact that this time last year, everybody was saying that the Cowboys were making such terrible moves that Mike McCarthy would be fired before the season was
Right.
over, and Sean Payton would be our new head coach. Did any of that happen?
Nope.
No. Not only did that not happen, but the reason it didn't happen was because Mike McCarthy managed to lead this team to its second double-digit win season. First time that the team had done that 2 seasons in a row in a couple of decades. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm just like, we just don't know. I mean, if we were to ask, what makes a draft class a good draft class, what would you say?
Time. You gotta wait and see how it shakes out, because you don't know. And that's the thing. You go through all this stuff and you dig into all these numbers and you look into it, and you don't know until 3, 4, 5 years down the line how it pans out. Because, like you just say, maybe somebody comes in that you weren't expecting to be good and they're good. Maybe it's vice versa. Maybe somebody's a late bloomer. Time is the true test of how good did you draft.
Yeah,
Right.
also
And
playing college
test.
is not the same as playing
Right,
in the
it's a
NFL.
different
Like, it's a
game.
completely
It's a
different
different
ballgame. So
game.
just
It
because you
is.
were huge in high school and college doesn't mean you're going to be huge in the NFL.
Exactly.
And Mike
And the
McCarthy
opposite
is
too. Like just
Exactly.
because probably they weren't using you right in college, and then you get to the NFL with great coaches, and they're like, you know what? I'm gonna put you here instead,
There you go.
and then you're just gonna fucking like excel,
Mhm.
like, you know.
There you go.
So
That's exactly it.
Rev made a comment and said, so based on Jazz, he's gonna make the team because he looks good. Okay. I don't know who he's talking about. That comment was left at 7:23. Was I still talking about Isaiah Lynn?
I
was it
haven't. I don't see.
I don't
Is
know.
it on Twitter?
This is a YouTube comment.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like on Twitter. There's nothing. But
Follow
yeah.
us on YouTube. One day I'll be able to tell you what our YouTube channel actually is. But yeah, we need subscribers. But yeah, so time. Agreed with you. The purpose of the draft, because when people give draft grades, what they're basically grading is you picked people who we thought were good. It's basically a popularity contest, right?
Mhm.
And so the purpose of the draft isn't to pick the most popular players among draft analysts and mock draft enthusiasts. The purpose of the draft is to pick people who hopefully fit in with your team, who can be members of the team, who can ensure longevity of the quality of your team. And that absolutely does take time. And so when I say I trust Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn and Will McClay, it's not that like, oh, I know them so well or I have this history of being right. It's just that they're the professionals. I'm going to see how it plays out. Because even if somebody turns out not to be a good choice, there's always the option of trading. That's why now the Texans have Noah Brown and we have Brandon Cooks.
There you go.
Right?
There you
So
go.
it's just like shit happens, shit changes. You give it time and see how it goes.
Also, you might not fit with the team and the
There
team
you
culture.
go.
Like, just because you're great or whatever, you come to the team and like you're a weirdo or whatever, and like you know, you just don't fit in. Like it
There you go.
happens. It
That's
happens. It
true.
happens in all sports. Like, so you gotta go somewhere else.
Exactly. Speaking of, before we get into the WNBA, I had this this debate with somebody over the weekend, and I mentioned it on Twitter, and I was kind of surprised that so many people on Twitter agreed with this sentiment. But basically, a friend of mine who I've known since middle school invited me to a crawfish boil. I didn't realize it was going to be his family at this crawfish boil. He was like, I'm having a crawfish boil. You should come. I was like, cool, I'm going to come. I get there. It's his dad doing the cooking. His mama's there. His
You know it's
sister's
gonna be good
there.
then.
His niece is there. And I'm like, oh, crap. So his dad is a Saints fan, right?
Nice.
I grew up a Saints fan. So I started talking about the fact
I
that
hope you
I've
didn't
known-
show up with a Cowboys shirt.
I did not. I did not. But I did mention the fact that I am a Saints fan and a Cowboys fan. And this man Oh my God, this man. Like I thought he was gonna throw me out. Like, you remember from Fresh Prince when they used to throw out the window? I thought he was gonna do me like that. But his basic sentiment was like, you cannot be a Cowboys fan and a Saints fan, because if you're a true Saints fan, you hate the Cowboys, right? So of course I go on Twitter to ask, and there were a couple of people who were like, no, of course you can't be fans of both. Now, in general, part of the Bitches Love Sports brand means we don't tell people how to be fans, because that's one of the things that makes it so hard for a lot of women to be fans, is that people have these weird ass rules about how to be a fan. And sometimes, especially for a woman who discovers sports in their adult life, not as a kid, it just doesn't really fit, right?
It's hard to get into it.
But there were a couple of people who were like, no, you can't do both. Or you can't be fans of both. And I'll admit, I haven't been a very good Saints fan. So maybe that's what makes it easy. Maybe it is wrong of me to call myself a Saints fan, because somebody, and they were innocent in their questions. But
they didn't have ulterior motives.
But for example, for my birthday, I'm planning on being at the training camp in Oxnard for the Cowboys, assuming that they go again. I think they are. I don't know the dates, but if it's the dates they usually go, I'll be able to go for my birthday. And they were like, well, have you ever been to a Saints training camp? And I was just like, well, no. But they're like, well, you've driven to Arlington on a couple of game days. You ever drove to New Orleans on game day? And I'm like, well, no. They're like, do you talk about the Saints on your podcast? Sometimes. Okay, fine. Like, damn. But, part of that is like, I don't get to watch the Saints. I'm in a market place the Cowboys. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. And I will be getting NFL Sunday ticket this year. Shout out to YouTube TV.
Nice.
For taking over that partnership. But like, what are y'all's thoughts on that? Like, as far as like being a fan of two teams?
I have feelings.
I know it doesn't really apply to y'all as much. But.
Well, I mean, I have feelings about it because coming from a country that is just one sport, you can technically only follow one team. Like, you're a traitor. Like, legit, you're a traitor if you switch teams throughout your life. So if you
throughout your life,
no joke,
it's a lifelong commitment.
Yes, it is a lifelong commitment. Like, I am a Football Club Barcelona fan since forever, just because everybody in my family was a Real Madrid fan. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna go the other way,
gotta be the
and
rebel.
I gotta be the outcast all the time. So even if I wanted to be a Real Madrid's fan, I just like my morals and my principles would be at stake. Like,
so let me ask you this: if Real Madrid was playing a team that's not your team, and your whole family was going, they were like, "Come with us." That one time,
I would go because they're not playing Barcelona. But could you? I'm good.
But
I could cheer for them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It depends. It depends who they're playing and like, the level of the game. Like, it just depends. But it's weird. But also it's different than here. Like, here, teams change cities not super often, but they do. And that's when I found that out, I was like, that was so wild to me, because that's never happened. Like, that's the name of the actual team is the name of the city. So it's like they never really change, because you're not gonna move up the city and put it somewhere else. So it's just like that's just how it is. So even if you follow a player, you can follow a player and kind of be a fan of a player, but you're still kind of a traitor if they're not on your team. So it's kind of hard for me to follow or be a fan. Let me say that. Be a fan of more than one team within the same sport.
Okay.
I'm not gonna judge you. I'm me personally. I'm not gonna judge you if you have a.
I don't care what you do.
I'm not gonna judge anybody if they're like that. Like, I have a cousin that I've gone to a couple of Texans games with, and like when I go, like I'm there,
shout
like
out Chris.
Yeah, shout out Big Cuz. But when I'm there with him at the game, like, yeah, I'm rooting for the Texans. Now, if they play in the Cowboys,
Right.
I'm rooting for the Cowboys. That's my
Obviously.
team. That's my team.
And
but
I mean, that's something that I've struggled with on this show. When it comes time for the Cowboys to play the Saints, I've just been like, and I have to pick. Now, luckily, the past couple seasons, I picked right. I picked the Cowboys.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's so like I said, I grew up a Saints fan. You know,
But I think you will
And-
always be a Saints fan at heart.
Yeah.
Whatever,
Yeah.
even if you like other teams or you are a fan of other teams, you will always be a Saints at
and that's
heart.
one of the things that I did say. I was just like, if the Cowboys were to lose certain players, or they
Mhm.
got to a point where they didn't have any players that I liked,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be a fan, at least temporarily. You know, I
Right.
would still follow them just because at this point I followed them so much. And even the story of Jerry Jones himself is so intriguing. I still follow it. But the Saints, on the flip side, they're at that point. I don't like the head coach.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't like the quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, Derek Carr better do something special, because
Yeah.
when they went with him, I was just like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara says getting hurt. He's on my damn nerves. Like, and you know how much he was one of my faves.
Oh, I know. I was
Like, a
wondering
couple
if you
years
were gonna
ago.
say something when he was gonna get bashed last time we were here. Somebody said something about Kamara, and I was like, "Ooh, she gonna say something." But
Well,
you did. I was
he's
like,
having
"Alright."
legal issues, and he's always
Yeah.
getting hurt. And I'm just like, it's like, I want to see him return to his former glory, but at the same time, I'm just so frustrated. I'm just like, my heart can only take so much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to root for you here. You
Yeah.
just keep fucking
Yeah.
up. like, you know?
That's the thing. Like,
And I think that's how I feel about the Saints as a whole. Go ahead.
yeah, like for me, like I'm from Zaragoza. Zaragoza has a soccer team, and they were okay growing up. So the first division has 20 teams in La Liga, and Zaragoza was usually, from the 10 down. And they went down to second division, and they've been in second division for a long time. But that's my heart. My heart will always be with them, like regardless. Like, and like nowadays it's kind of a joke within my family, because my sister is dating a professional soccer player who plays in Ireland now, but wants to come to Spain to play in La Liga. And my dad wants him so bad to play for Zaragoza. And is like, yeah, defend the line, because that's the mascot is the line, whatever. And it's like, but you're a Real Madrid fan, right? And like, I'm a Barcelona fan though, right? Like, but if he comes to play Zaragoza, are we just gonna like, like it's a weird place. But if Nandito shout out, if Nando makes it to Zaragoza, I mean, there's no way I cannot root for him, Now, if he ever plays for Real Madrid, we will have a different conversation. But we'll get there when we get there.
It's like you said, though, there's no rules. Like my mom.
Your mom is so funny watching sports.
My mom, and I told you this before, my mom used to have the biggest crush on Donovan McNabb, and he was a quarterback for the Eagles, like back when the Eagles were good at that point, like 2000s. So like, anytime they play on that Sunday, like it was, I ain't gonna say it was tense in the house, but
but it was
it's a little tense because she in there rooting for McNabb, and we in there rooting for the Cowboys. But I mean, because that's the thing, you get attached to players too.
Right,
You get attached to
right.
players. Like I'm a LeBron fan, so like I'm not gonna cheer if they playing the Spurs are my team. I know we struggling right now.
We're not talking about
We
that
won't
right
win Beyonce on the side note, but you get attached to players, and you have all that going on. So like you said, there's no rules. Like cheer for who you want to cheer for. Now if somebody's gonna give you shit about that, that's part of it. But
also,
yeah,
like,
and I guess that's what it is. I just
Yeah,
need to start accepting that I'm gonna get shit for certain
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
It annoys me, but I'm gonna read these couple of tweets because I do want to get to talking about LeBron. But this was part of the exchange that happened on Twitter. A few people engaged, but this was like the main part. And this one guy said, "Fan is short for fanatic. Being a fanatic of multiple teams is akin to being a worshiper of multiple religions.
Oh.
Imagine that. Well, I'm
Damn.
Christian, but I like Allah and Yahweh too. And
Whoa.
Buddha is cool. Just no." And so I said, LMAO, no.
Yeah.
Usually people's entire lives are guided by religion, and the crux of most religions is absolute faith in that set of beliefs and no other. That doesn't apply to sports. My entire life is not dedicated to a brand, and no team requires absolute faith to be a fan.
But hold up. There's a fuck ton to unpack them there, but I just want to say, like, you can't compare. Well, I'm not a religious person, but like I grew up Catholic. Like you can't compare sports to religion like that. Like that's like Marjorie Taylor Greene fucking comparing Trump to Jesus. Like, bro, and that is a fact. It happened. She did it, but that doesn't mean it's true.
Some people really kind of do, and if you look at how some people act, it does kind of borderline on.
Are they paying your bills? No, they ain't.
But see, I think that's the difference between my philosophy and why I've gotten into it with so many Cowboys fans this season. Because it's like I've always rooted for the Cowboys, but when it comes to me getting into it with other Cowboys fans, it's usually because I say things like, "Y'all chill out. The team is good. Like they don't owe you a Super Bowl. Hope they get one, but if they don't, it's not because Dak is trash.
You ain't getting no ring. You are not getting a ring.
Fuck off. You know." And so I guess my philosophy on sports is like, it's fun. I have fun being a fan.
It's entertainment.
There are players that I like to watch. Like, and that's why I'm not dedicated to one, because that part to me is not fun. Like seeing all these people mad after the draft and mad even when we win, and just mad even though you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Like this shit is wild to me. And I'm just like, are y'all even having fun? Y'all seem miserable. This should be fun.
That's exactly. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I get miserable sometimes too, watching my team lose, and like, you know,
I'm miserable for
on certain players. But I'm not gonna let that affect my daily life. Like, I'm not gonna like not go to work tomorrow because I'm so mad I'm not gonna sleep tonight, or like, you know, and I'm not gonna like not pay my electric bill because whatever. Like, no, that's not how it works, you know.
Until one of these owners start sending me a check.
That's right. That's right. I'm sleeping tight at night.
Look, I want you to win, but look, hey,
I'm hoping one day I get a check from sports.
Yes, I mean I do too.
When
but
I get
you
there,
know,
I'm gonna shout out Dawa Studios and be like,
"Yay,
they gave us that leg up." My quality. So okay, I don't think we're gonna have time to get into the WNBA stuff that I wanted to get into today, which is fine, because we still have time. The season hasn't started yet. They're in training camp right now. I followed some new accounts today that follow the Dallas Wings, so we'll have a bunch of stuff to say about them next time, which I don't know what next time is because we haven't scheduled our future sessions. But anyway,
ever.
I do want to say shout out to Angel Reese for her new NIL deal with Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge, just in time for her birthday, like doing it big. I don't know what she's gonna do, but Flage tweeted something about, I can't wait for Angel to break the internet. And girl, I don't even know what's about to happen, but I can't wait either. I just saw a picture of her leaning on that Benz, and I'm just like, girl, you are doing the fucking thing. Like, you are the dream of so many women athletes before you. So props to you. Props to you on the new deal, and just best of luck. You know, there's a lot of speculation about what deals like that mean for the WNBA, because it is a fact that Angel Reese and Flage are making more money than what they would be able to make in the WNBA if they went right now. So what does that mean when they graduate, right? It's going to be interesting to see how this affects women's sports, especially the WNBA moving forward. But for right now, I'm just happy for her. I'm glad to see a young woman being herself, being unapologetically herself, and thriving. I feel like that just sends such a good message. And they just got Haley Van Lith, which it was so cute. After, you know, it was announced, Angel Reese tweeted, she was like, I heard pretty girls go to LSU. And I gotta admit, their team went to LSU. Their team is kind of pulling like a 2022 LA Sparks with the lineup they got as far as like the pretty girl quota. So we'll see what that also does for their NIL deals and the culture there. So I'm loving it. I'm enjoying following it. And then with the WNBA, of course, we're going to be following the Aces. We're going to be following the Liberty because those are our favorite teams right now. But, you know, we can't ignore the wings.
Right.
Now there are a lot of questions to be answered on that team, and we're hoping to see them still do great things, but we do want to put as much effort into the wings as we do with the Cowboys when it's the WNBA season, like we do for NFL season. So that's why I'm putting in that effort. One thing that I do talk a lot about on Twitter is the fact that part of the reason why women's sports struggle a little bit is because it takes so much more homework to even get information on women's sports.
Yeah.
Like I put out a tweet and I was like, yo, which accounts are following the Dallas Wings? Nothing. Wow. I had to literally start mentioning specific people who I know write about the WNBA and write about women's sports to be like, hey, who is covering the Dallas Wings? Yeah. And finally, Miles from Winsider, shout out to him, was like, make sure you follow these accounts. And he tagged them. One of them followed us back. So cool. Nice. But it's like, most people aren't going to do that. So we got to get women's sports to the point where it's as easy to get information on these WNBA teams as it is on other sports. And I think that's whenever we'll really see that jump. And maybe there won't be so much of a question for athletes like Angel Reese and Flage when it comes to what they'll do when they leave college. It'll be like, oh, well, they'll join the Las Vegas Aces and continue making them at power. Speaking of, quick shout out to the Las Vegas Aces on their facility that they just built.
Oh, nice.
It's the first ever facility that was built exclusively for a WNBA team. So all other WNBA teams up until this point. Now I got to see if I can find the video. But all the other WNBA teams up until this point, they've basically had to share facilities or rent facilities. They didn't have. Told y'all this mic is in the way. They didn't have their own dedicated space. And so the Las Vegas Aces recently had a space built. And there's some live footage of it, but I'm gonna show y'all the CGI tour first, because it was a pretty cool video.
I just want to say that I do have a shout out that I forgot.
Oh, who's your shout out?
It's for Chloe Ricketts, which is 15 years old and the youngest soccer for the WSNL the National Women's Soccer League.
Oh, and WSL.
Fucking acronyms. Yeah, she's 15.
You know what? I never realized how difficult acronyms were until I thought about the fact that like adjectives are backwards in other language, or I shouldn't say backwards, they're opposite. And so acronyms are literally
so
different.
Hard.
Whenever you try to remember what the letters stand for, I was like,
So anyways, shout out to you. You're doing great. You're a phenomenal player. You're going to be in USA team in no time. And it's amazing.
Huge shout out.
15 years old.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Youngest ever. So kudos.
All right. We're going to show you all this video, and then we're going to talk about some of the headlines in the WNBA, and then we'll get out of here.
15 seconds to go. Sun out of timeouts. Williams lets it fly, can't hit. Wilson the rebound, and this season has come up aces. The city of Las Vegas has its first major professional title. The Las Vegas Aces, your 2022 WNBA champions.
As far as what players get paid, that is all subject to the CBA, which has to do with revenue that comes in. But what we can see from the ownership of the Las Vegas Aces is that the way that they're paying their coach and the attempts that they try to make accommodations as comfortable as they can for their players,
Clearly working.
and the networking that opportunities that they try to do to get endorsement deals for their players and facilities like this, they are trying to do as much as they can to really treat their athletes like professionals, the professionals that they are. So props to the organization, and hopefully at some point the rest of the WNBA catches up. All right.
Fingers crossed.
So while we're talking about basketball, let's talk about the NBA real quick. We're going to talk really quick about what's going on with the Suns and Celtics, and then we'll get to the hot topic of the night, which is the Lakers and the Warriors, which nobody saw that one coming, but we'll get into that in a second. So we've got the Suns. Y'all, it hurts. And let me tell you why. So the Suns are down 2-0 against the Nuggets. And I get it. The Nuggets are a 1 seed. So based on their standing, you would assume that the Nuggets would win.
Right.
But there were such high hopes for the Suns, especially when they got Kevin Durant. And it's just like situations like what they're in now. Wonder if they would have been better off not making that trade, because at least they would still have the twins. They would still have some contribution off their bench, because their bench right now, I don't want to hear shit else from DeAndre Ayton. And that's not even the bench. That's not even the bench. He's just not a star, right? But it's just after every game so far, DeAndre Ayton's been like, we're gonna be a different team. And I just want to be like, dude, shut up. Like you're not helping. Your statements aren't helping, and you're not helping on the court. But also Kevin Durant isn't really helping the way that we thought he would. Last night, 27 shot attempts that yielded 24 points with 40 minutes on the court. What?
Oh, KD.
What?
KD.
What is, and it just feels like there's no chemistry there.
That's that. And I think
we
talked about that.
We're not seeing pick and rolls between him and Chris Paul or him and Devin Booker. And Monty Smith is not a bad coach. So I'm just like, what is happening? What is the problem? What is the problem?
I think you hit the nail, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. I think it's a chemistry issue. I think that they have enough talent. Booker is still balling. Like, he's balling. And KD was disappointing last night. I can't let KD slide. I was disappointed.
And then Chris Paul got hurt again.
Yeah.
Another playoff injury again. Really?
But I don't think that the series is over. Even with Chris Paul hurt, I think they can still come back.
Even with them being down 2 games already?
I think they can still come back.
Teams don't come back from 2 games.
They usually don't. But But if Booker and KD are just like, you know what? Let's just carry this thing, and they get hot and they win these 2 games at home, it's a new series going back to Denver. I think it's still possible.
You mean going back to Denver after
for
the
game 5? I think they can. I don't think they're out of it yet. Now they lose game 3 and they go down 0-3. I think it's definitely a wrap then. But I don't know.
One thing that I will say about both of them. So it's like last week we talked about the fact that Chris Paul's name hadn't been mentioned, but he still plays a very important role on the team as a leader.
Right.
And I'm just wondering if his lack of production, not that he's been bad, but it's just like all season he hasn't been the producer. It's been like Devin Booker's been the person who's holding it together on the court, and Chris Paul was the culture guy, right? And so I'm just wondering if Kevin Durant being there, if it's done something to the chemistry in the locker room I don't know, because like if I'm being real, especially last night, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, they're both whiners. And I hate to say it because like y'all know how I hate when people call my fave soft, but I gotta call a spade a spade. Devin Booker is and every now and then he'll get over it.
He's what?
Every now and then he'll get over it, but there are some games, especially when the game isn't going his way, that he gets too caught up in what the refs are doing and what calls are made or are not made. And he starts kind of becoming a little bit of a whiner. And it's not cute. It's not attractive. Dear Book, I'm not about to write you a whole letter. This is more like a text. But could you please just focus on offense and defense? And if the refs don't make a call, fuck it. Like, I don't need you to get a call. I need you to get a W. I don't need you to, I don't need refs to make the calls. I need you to get points. Like, it's not fouls that are gonna get you these wins. It's you showing up like you did at the end of the last series and being that what did Kevin Durant call it, a spiritual experience? That's what we need. We need another spiritual experience in game 3. Okay, like, and I just wonder if having Kevin Durant there has like emphasized that side of him, because now he's got a buddy in it, because Chris Paul wasn't about that shit. And now I wonder, now that he's got a buddy, because I've seen them a couple of times do it with each other. And I'm just wondering if they're kind of like a distraction for each other. Right. And one of them needs to be like, yo, we need to cut this shit out. And because it's like, we're both ballers and we need to just be like, fuck the refs. If they miss a call, they miss a call. We need to get these points. We need to get these rebounds. We need to keep the team going in a certain direction.
I agree.
Somebody has to make that comment after anything like that happens, even if it's at the bench.
Yeah,
like that energy is so contagious. We've talked about this multiple times. That energy is so contagious, and if nobody puts a stop to it, you're just gonna let it to you. It's just gonna.
And it's the kind of thing that can also be discouraging
too. If I don't have anybody telling me like, "Yo, fuck it," it is a penalty. Period. Like, even if it didn't happen, even if it wasn't a penalty, you have to go to the fucking box. That's just how it is. Period. So just get over it.
It's the kind of thing that can also be discouraging, especially if like you're already in a situation where the game is close. Because like going into halftime yesterday, the Suns had a 2-point lead, which I was happy about, but I was watching and I was like, it's a 2-point lead, but that was a hard fought lead. It's like they are having to give everything just to be up by 2 points. I don't know if they can sustain this level of intensity the entire series or throughout the entire playoffs. Because ultimately what we want is a ring for Chris Paul, you know? And Chris Paul playing as many minutes as he's been playing, I was already worried about an injury. And the next thing you know, he goes up for a block or a rebound or whatever it was, groin injury. Like this was a non-contact situation where it is just literally some old man shit, you know? Right. And so like it sucks to see like one of your fears come to fruition like that. But it is one of those things that makes you say like, okay, like you can't keep focusing on this other stuff because like one of the worst things that could possibly happen happened. And so now you have to show up. Like this person's not coming back to the court, you know?
Yeah. That's
I agree.
But
I don't know, do you think that maybe KD is just not a right fit? Not like physically or like clearly less skill wise, but like as a person.
KD to me comes off as one of those people who doesn't understand the influence that he has on a team. You and I had a teammate like this, right? And I don't know if I should mention that person by name, but we'll just say there are sometimes people. This is something the Derby community needs to hear anyway. There's different types of influence and power, right? So there's responsibility, which is usually related to your title. So if you are a captain or in roller derby, a lot of leagues have an advisory board and you're a member of the advisory board or leadership.
President or,
and a lot of people think that comes with power. It doesn't. It comes with responsibility because that title means you have a job to do. And that the way you do that job usually depends on what the members of your team or of your league want. So that is a responsibility, right? So there's responsibility, right? Then there's actual power. That is your ability to influence how things happen, right? And that is what KD has. KD has power that he doesn't realize he has, right? And then what's also separate from that is authority. Authority means you actually make the decisions. Now, there are a lot of times that people who have responsibility and they also have authority, but they don't necessarily have power, right? So, for example, with the WFTDA has authority to dictate how rankings go, which tournaments are considered WFTDA certified tournaments, right? But there are people within the Derby community who actually have power that influences the decisions that the WFTDA makes, if we're being real, right? So the WFTDA has a responsibility to its member leagues and they have authority, but do they have all the power? No. They do not. right? So we have responsibility, influence, authority, and power, right? KD has influence and power that he does not recognize. And I think that is his biggest problem because he doesn't want responsibility.
Yeah.
He does not, he absolutely does not want responsibility. And anytime he's been put
He's
into
not a
a
leader.
position,
Yes.
anytime he's been put into a position where he needs to take that responsibility as a leader, he has failed miserably.
Yes. Yes.
Which is fine. When you're one of the best players in the world, be that all day. And these teams just need to learn not to put KD in a position of responsibility, right? But you can avoid responsibility. You can't always avoid influence, right? Because you can look at responsibility and say, I don't want you, but influence is not as easy. Influence is one of those things that you have, whether you want it or not, and you need to understand what it does. And so KD right now, he needs to look at that tape and be like, if I start whining, Book is going to start whining.
Yeah.
So I need to be responsible for the influence and power that I have.
Yeah.
And I need to be the one. I'm going to have to take the responsibility that I don't want, but it's just a little bit of responsibility.
Yeah.
I don't have to take CP3 levels of responsibility,
Right.
but I need to take responsibility over myself so that the things I do don't influence Devin Booker.
Yeah.
And we can both focus on getting these points.
Yeah.
That's what needs to happen.
There you go.
And so in that sense, he's not a good fit. But not just for the Suns, he's not going to be a good fit for any team. Because of how talented he is, every team he goes to, he has that influence. Every single one. Because just like in Derby, this is a problem in Derby. When people are a good skater, they automatically have influence. Even if they're not a good coach, they're not a good leader, they might not even be a good teammate. We've seen it.
Yeah, why not?
But if they are a good skater, they're and Derby leagues, if you're listening to this and you want to know the flow of power in your organization,
let us know.
No. I'm gonna tell you how to tell. I'm gonna tell you how to tell. If you want to know if somebody has power, or if they have influence, tell them something they're not supposed to tell nobody else, and then see how long it is before the whole league knows. And then that'll let you know how much power that person has. Try it as an experiment. It don't even have to be true.
Or even if it's something that you don't want them to know, like who wouldn't you tell? Because you know they would tell. You know that person has power.
Sometimes people talking ain't necessarily a sign of power. It's just a sign of them being nosy. But the people who do have power, whenever they use it, those are the people who are always having those are the people who other people go to when they have a problem with leadership and they don't go to leadership and they're like, I have this problem. What do you think about what leadership is doing? And then that person sometimes, and it might be innocent, they'll be like, well, I heard. So tell them something, even if it's not true, tell them something and just see how long it is before you get an email. Someone told me.
Yeah.
And that'll let you know all you need to know.
Which, by the way, remind me, I have some tea for you later. I cannot drop it here yet.
But that's KD's issue. And we can talk more about that later, but I'm going to go on to the next thing because we got to talk about the Lakers and get out of here. Celtics. Celtics. Jason Tatum. Jason actually didn't do bad last year, but
good.
You're not going to write him a letter?
Or not last year, not last night. I don't even know where to start with the letter to Jason Tatum. And here's the thing. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, if you were to look at it on paper, facing a Sixers team that did not have Joel Embiid, who didn't expect them to win that game?
Nobody.
Now, I'm going to say this about Harden, James Harden. I think a lot of people were thinking about what the Sixers look like. They were thinking about the Sixers with Joel Embiid, and they subtract Joel Embiid, and they're like, this is what you're left with. The Celtics should win, right? But here's the thing is, the Sixers are not an addition-subtraction equation, especially when Harden is thrown into the mix. Because one of the things, if you think about James Harden and think about when he's been great, when has he been the greatest?
When he's got the ball in his hands, when it's his team, that's when he's good. And that's what they let him do last night. Like, look.
Did you listen to his post-game interview last night?
I didn't hear. What did he say? I'd like to hear what he said.
He said, it's been a long time since I've been able to just go out and do what I want.
I bet that's what he said. When he was in Houston and he put up all those crazy numbers in Houston, they just gave him the ball and let him do whatever he wanted to do. And that's what it's funny because just last week, I was telling my brother, I was like, James Harden is still good. But I don't know if he can still do the things that he did in Houston. And then my brother texted me this morning. I wish I could. He didn't even text me no words. He just sent me a James Harden gif with him doing the shit.
But here's the thing about James Harden. He's almost like KD in a way, and to where you have to know which situations he thrives in. And for James Harden, when he has to think about his role and think about his relationship with another star or another playmaker, it's too much for his brain.
Yeah.
Right.
But when it's like, this game is on you.
Yeah.
You got it, Beard.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
He's like,
got a hoop.
oh, I just do what I want?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is where he shines.
Is
As a matter of fact, if the Sixers want to get the most out of him, they need to put him on the court when Embiid is resting.
There you go. Let him do
put him
that.
together,
Make that a part of your game.
Because when he
plan.
doesn't have to think about anything else and he's like, it's on me, he's like, I'm going to do what I want. And
There
he
you go.
goes out and he'll do it. And that is a part of the equation that people were missing.
Yeah.
And somebody asked the question this morning. They said, where is the identity of the Celtics? Now, I'm not going to get into Ime Udoka and whether or not his firing was warranted or it made sense. Because we talked about it a little bit and we expected some more information to come out. It never came out. Okay, cool, whatever. But I would go so far as to say, I think last year when they made it to the finals, Ime Udoka was their identity. He was the one who gave them that drive. Yes. And now they have a coach who's competent but new, and establishing a culture is hard.
Oh, it is.
It is.
And Jason Tatum, while he's a talented player, and he's so cute.
Yeah,
Jason Tatum is bae.
He is.
But I'm not about to sit here and act like he has the Mamba mentality or nothing like that. He's not that.
Ain't nobody had the Mamba mentality though.
But you know what I'm saying? He's not
Right.
he's not that dude. He's not Harden.
Right.
He's not gonna go out and be like, I'm gonna put the team on my back and get it done.
Yeah.
He's the person who's like, I have the skills to get it done,
but
but I need somebody to tell me what the job is that needs to be done.
I need help.
And as far as Jaylen Brown, I think he might be in a place, maybe like Harden, where he's like, if it were on me, I could do something. But I'm out here with this dude who don't really know what he wants to do, and it's confusing to me. You've been on a roller derby track where it's like, you might be a pivot and you're just like, I want to go play offense, but I don't know what the rest of my body. If I leave this wall, I don't know what is about to happen. And so people might be looking at you like, why are they not playing offense? That's Payne plays really good offense. Why is she not going? And it's because there's just so many questions between the other four, you and the other four people that's on the track. And that's what it feels like with the Celtics. It just feels like they weren't prepared for the James Harden that showed up, for one thing. And nobody stepped up and said, you know what? We didn't see this coming, but we're just going to play the hardest defense. Like, we're not about to go out like this, you know?
Right.
And I don't know. I remember having the same question in the playoffs last year. And I still remember the episode because I was so sad. And I opened the episode and I was like, they saying my faves is soft. Yeah. And it feels like a deja vu. And I'm like, what? Y'all. And I'm just like, why? Why can't I get my face to show up one time? Dak, CD, I'm gonna need y'all to have a hell of a season because I'm really feeling like I'm a curse right now. So
it's not you.
But anyway,
it's not you.
The story of the playoffs, the Lakers and the Warriors. Okay, so so one thing that's interesting about this series that's going to be starting tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern. I'm gonna turn it on, or is it 9 o'clock Eastern? It's 9 o'clock Eastern.
I think so. I think it's
so. Yeah, I think it just started, which is another reason why we got to get out of here. I need to watch it. But yeah, so the Warriors actually were down 2-0, which is why I know statistically how hard it is because every sports show it's like 97% of the teams that go down 2-0, they don't win the series, they end up losing. So the Warriors are gonna lose to the Sacramento Kings. It was a big deal, you know, with everybody thinking the Warriors were gonna lose the series to the Sacramento Kings, and they came back, right? Same thing with the Lakers. You know, people thought that the Lakers weren't going to be able to keep up with the speed of the Grizzlies and the athleticism of John Morant, and they thought Dylan Brooks had gotten to James or LeBron James's head. And next thing you know, both of these teams who everybody had written off, they came back, and you know they're doing big things. And so it's like, you know, people talk about LeBron James 38. Steph Curry is 35.
There you go.
And I think had it not been for LeBron James doing what he's doing now at 38, people would be talking more about Steph Curry being 35. Because when LeBron James was 35, people were like, is he really about to sign a new contract? Like, he really, like, is he really still going? Like, what? You know? But now that Steph Curry is 35, that's not even a conversation because we've already seen people do it. And Steph Curry is still adding to his game. He used to be he's a long-range sniper. But what did he show us the other night? Oh, I can get to the basket too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you thought I was good from 30 feet, 40 feet. Watch me do it from 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't think you've seen everything from me. And so it really is phenomenal to watch. And I don't really have a prediction for this series yet. The main reason I'm predicting the Warriors to take it is because of their depth and the fact that Anthony Davis is a fucking hypochondriac. And there's already been a couple of times in the playoffs where you've been like, I can't feel my arm. And I'm like, it's just gonna take that one thing for him to finally be like, okay, I'm really injured this time. I'm out. So I don't know.
I'm right there with
but it is great to see these historically great franchises show like, oh, y'all wrote us off. No, we still here. And I wish they would have met later in the playoffs just so they'd be in longer.
Yes.
Shut up, Bixby.
I'm like, what?
It's mine. But what are y'all thinking about?
I'm with you. I just want to see a good series. You know, it's hard for me to bet against teams, and I don't want to say bet against, but like if you have proven that you can do it, you know, like it's hard for me to count you out. So I wasn't, and the Kings are so young, so that's why I wasn't, even when they went down 0-2, you know, I was like, oh, well, they still got a shot, but I just want to see a good series. That's really all I want to see. I want to see the good players be great. I don't have a prediction either. I just don't want it to be over in 4 or 5 games. I want to see them battle it out, go all the way to the end. I'm also with you too. I wish it would have been later so they would be further off and it would be like, you know, a really big, but I just want
might be one of the best series of the playoffs happening already.
That was going to be my opinion. This is probably the best series of the playoffs.
Exactly. I just want to see a really good series. I mean, Steph is coming in hot, you know, coming off the 50-point game. You know, LeBron has seemed to kind of take more of a little bit of a, you know, a facilitator type of role, kind of, you know, making sure everybody else is involved. I don't think he's scored.
I mean, there's been a couple of games where he's really done his thing though.
Yeah. Oh, that's not to say he's not playing well. He's playing well, but you know, we've seen LeBron in the past have 30, 40, 50-point games in the playoffs. I don't think he's hit 30 yet in these playoffs, but that's why I'm interested to see what happens tonight. Because LeBron and Steph and the Warriors and that whole thing, like LeBron knows, like, and Steph knows too. They both know, like, this isn't a series where we can afford to not come out with our best effort.
Right.
You're playing against players, teams that have won championships, proven players. Like you can't, like I guarantee you the Warriors talking right now, like we can't go down 0-2 in this series. And the Lakers are talking the same thing. Like we got to come out and set the tone in this first game. So I'm interested to see how it starts this first game. I don't have a prediction on it. I'm a full-blown fan.
I was literally just gonna say this is playing at home. I just want it to be a competitive game.
Yes, that's all I want.
And I think it will be.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I agree. Yeah. But this is when his teams are not playing, that regardless of the sport, I just want it to be fun. I just want it to be competitive. I don't want it to be a blowout.
I just want to say this though. I want to give a shout out to Jimmy Butler. Because that game, what game was that? The last game?
Yes.
I mean, the last couple of games. Yeah, the last game he got injured.
Yeah, 56. Look, I was talking.
Yeah, that was the game before last.
Yes, I'm like Jimmy, and this is the thing. He's been doing this the past 3 or 4 playoffs, having big playoff series.
But he says playoff Jimmy is not a thing.
Oh, playoff Jimmy is a thing. Look, whether he wants it to be or not, playoff Jimmy is a thing. And that's not to say he's not a good player in the regular season. And I don't want to just, you know, like go all off on a tangent. But
always
that game when he scored 56,
it's like he's training the whole season for playoffs. It's like he's training for playoffs.
That's one of the best playoff performances by a single player that I've ever seen.
Yes.
That's one of the best.
Yes.
Like,
It was
So-
insane. The whole crowd was
Yes,
going crazy. The
and
game
then-
was bananas.
then at the end, this
Everything.
my shit.
Yeah, this my shit.
Yeah, Jimmy, tell him so. I just want to shout out Jimmy Butler because he's a player that during the regular season, or if he hadn't had these
You
runs,
don't hear that
you
much
wouldn't
about
be.
him.
They don't talk about
Mhm.
him as one of the top 10, top 20 players in the league. But Jimmy Butler is. If you didn't know, I don't know if he's playing tonight, or I don't know if you end up playing tonight or not. I hadn't checked or anything, but shout out Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, I don't remember when their next game is. I know the Suns play again on Friday, because everybody made a big deal about their 3 days of rest, which hopefully does something. I don't know. Maybe somebody will see the clip talking to Kevin Durant, and it'll make a difference. Stop being a bad influence on Book. Damn. But yeah, tonight, Lakers and Warriors happening right now, actually, I believe. So LeBron James is 38, Steph Curry is 35, Klay Thompson and Draymond Green are both 33. And Draymond was the main one who said, don't write them off. And I think that's fair. We are at a point, sports analysts, where we should we have enough examples by now to know, like, this ain't 1984. Okay, people can play into their 30s and into their 40s depending on how they take care of their bodies and what
And
they've
how
been
demanding
through.
the sport is too.
Exactly. So I'm looking forward to seeing these guys who just went up against some very young teams. John Moran is 23 years old.
Yes.
And based on a lot of people's philosophy, he should have just been able to win out on youth alone. But like, what we see is a difference in culture. I pointed this out to somebody. When the Warriors had to step it up against the Sacramento Kings, Steph Curry gave a speech to the team and basically said, like, if you're in your feelings, if you have feelings about playing time, you are not getting what the refs are calling, whatever, stay home, stay in the locker room, don't get on the plane. We don't want you.
Yeah.
We need to win this. John Morant, on the flip side, he kind of had some things to say about his role in off the court distractions, which, okay, take responsibility for that if you want to, but that's not the same thing as being able to set the culture for a team and being able to say something to the other role players on your team and not giving a fuck how they feel. That takes maturity.
Oh yeah.
That the Grizzlies just don't have. The Grizzlies don't have it yet.
It's a young team. It's very young.
And the way they're even going about developing it, I don't know, because the news came down today about Dylan Brooks and the fact that they're definitely not re-signing him. And someone from the Grizzlies basically said they're going to be taking a different approach to trash talk moving forward. And I'm like, if you think trash talk and Dylan Brooks are the problem, you're already approaching this issue from the wrong angle.
Yes.
Now, there are reasons you don't want to take back Dylan Brooks. I'm not going to tell you who to re-sign and who to give money to, whatever. But Dylan Brooks is a player who played his heart out, right? He gave you a lot on the court. Did he talk shit in the media? Yeah, but a lot of the best players in the game have, and I just don't think that getting rid of him and making a rule about trash talk is going to solve the problem that the Grizzlies have. They definitely need leadership, and I think a different approach to trash talk could be a byproduct of that. But I don't think that alone is going to solve the problems that they're.
Than that.
Yeah,
they need a stronger culture than that.
They need a stronger culture, and it's like, even if you get in Dylan Brooks, unless you bring in somebody else, there's still going to be issues. And it's not like Dylan Brooks was the only person talking trash,
right?
And it's not like talking trash is what makes you lose your ability to play defense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Those things weren't the problem. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with the Grizzlies. I like following the Grizzlies mainly because John Morant is he's a very dynamic player to watch. But I don't. The offseason just started for them, and I already don't like some of the decisions that they're making. So we'll see what happens. All right. Anything else to add in before we wrap up?
I don't think so. Go Spurs.
I will throw that in there. They finna have the draft lottery here. I don't know if it's next week or 2 weeks to see the order of the draft. Like I said before, I am a Spurs fan. If the Spurs get Wembyana, well, I don't know how to say it. Wemby. I can't think of his name. If the Spurs get him,
the French guy.
Yeah, the French guy. If
guy.
we get him, I'm not saying we finna win the championship, but I will say it right now here first. We'll at least be in the playoffs next year.
The Spurs have had a couple of years of just.
It was just bad.
It's rough.
They need some good.
It's rough.
Good moves.
But this is what I tell everybody about the Spurs. because I don't want to turn it into a Spurs thing. My family moved to San Antonio in 93, 94. And so I was in the city for all 5 championships. I don't care if the Spurs don't never win another game. I still got my Spurs beanie, my Spurs shorts. I still got my jerseys. I was downtown at 2 of the parades. Like the Cowboys, look, it used to be, I can always depend on the Spurs to be competitive if the Cowboys let me down. But now I'm depending on the Cowboys because the Spurs let me down. But that's it. That's all I'm gonna say. Look.
So you're what my Twitter followers would call a true Spurs fan.
That's my squad. Always will be. I was at the parade. I got pictures on one of my phones. I got videos.
I was at the parade. How am I not gonna be a fan? I was at the parade. That makes me automatically a fan.
That's my squad. You know, I got like a proverbial ring, or what's the word? Not proverbial. You know, like
figurative.
Yes, maybe figurative. I feel like I got a ring on my finger because I was there. You know, for some of them championships, but
so vicarious.
There we go.
Yeah,
that's probably the
word.
word. Yeah, that's probably the word for it. But,
cool.
All right. Well, on that note, I don't know when we're gonna be back again because like I said, I haven't scheduled any sessions. But when we do come back, we'll be talking about the WNBA training camp developments, what we expect to see in the new season. Hopefully, we'll have some things to say about the Dallas Cowboys from rookie camp. We might even have some things to say about roller derby. So
tournament soon.
Yes. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube. If you follow us on Twitter, you'll learn how to follow us on YouTube. We're going to be posting some of our throwback episodes. So going back to the very beginning and posting some of our highlights so that we can share them.
Do not judge. I mean, judge, but you know,
one of the things that made me okay with hosting the podcast, is a political podcast called The Young Turks. And when I first started watching them, it was a dude who literally sat in front of a brick wall with a mic. And eventually he got other co-hosts, they got a bigger set, they got better production. And now they're at a point where they have a whole YouTube TV channel dedicated to their content because he has that many contributors, that many sets, and that much content to roll out. That's how much they grew. And that was one of the things that made me comfortable with starting a podcast because I thought about that guy whose name I can't remember, Cenk Uygur, I think is what it is. But I thought about when he started with bad audio, bad video, sitting in front of a brick wall. And he just stayed consistent until he grew. And I was just like,
I mean, we've come
I was
a
like,
long
everybody got to
ass
start
way.
somewhere. Whatever. I'm going to start here.
We've come a long way from the first episode recorded in your mail room in your complex to my living room.
Yes, I forgot. People walking in.
But we'll have to stop, let them get their
y'all gonna
mail,
see it.
get back. But anyways, to here. So yeah.
Y'all gonna see it. We'll be sharing those highlights. It'll be a good time, a good way to commemorate the growth of the podcast to where we are now with our studios, who makes us look and sound really good. So speaking of which, want to let Ever get out of here. So on that note, I'm Bitch 2.
I'm Bitch 1.
I'm Flip.
And we out.
Bye.
Bye.